Welcome, everybody. It's episode 227. Tony's back. Yay! And we're live.
Well,
Different time, different day, multiple time zones, but we pulled it off. Thanks for
yes,
being
we did.
here. Probably at your dinner time. Sorry about that.
That's okay. We're all good.
All right, good.
I don't know whose idea it was to run an organization that's international, but in retrospect, it was a really stupid idea. I was up at 11 o'clock last night talking to the Canadians, so that was entertaining. And so 6 o'clock here in the UK isn't too obscene for the Americans. We don't mind the Americans so much. The Canadians, they're a pain in the backside. They're too late.
on the BC side.
Yeah, I think Calgary time. Yeah. It was,
I thought about being like, should I do this at 1 a.m. my time? And then it would be like your morning. And I was like, that would be crazy.
You just tell me when you want me. I set my alarm, and it's been crazy, honestly. We just take it in our stride now. We know that if we're going to operate internationally, this is what we have to do. So that's what we do. And something I wanted to add before we actually get started. Do you realize that your podcast was the first podcast I ever appeared on for Responsible Reptile Keeping? Yeah, that's right.
I love it. Thank you.
Your podcast, when I did it, was it 3 or 4 years ago? Was the first podcast I did for Responsible Reptile Keeping, and I spent 3 days preparing. I was so excited.
What?
Yep.
Thank you. We're not that exciting, but I do think
you are.
Okay, thanks. I think a lot of people did find out about you from that episode in the US anyway. I don't know how much of it.
We saw a spike in memberships from the USA. And to be honest, this is why we continue to do podcasts at ridiculous hours of the day and night, because it's one of the most important things we do. It gets our name and our mission out there. The problem that we have with America is that USARK are so good at what they do and so prolific over there that people either think that we're the European version of USARK, which we're not, or that we're in competition with USARK, which we're not.
No, I think you're quite complementary.
Exactly. USARK are very good at what they do, and what we do supports what they do. Yes, absolutely. Phil and I speak relatively often, and we'll talk about it in more detail later, I'm sure. But essentially, the more successful we are with our mission at Responsible Reptile Keeping, the less bullshit Phil has to deal with. But we'll come on to that.
Well, let's get into it. What is Responsible Reptile Keeping's mission?
Okay.
Maybe it changed a little bit or expanded.
Let me start with the shortest version I can give you of that. Responsible Reptile Keeping's mission is we are the antidote to bullshit. Okay?
We need that.
So what I mean by that is most of the problems we face as keepers or breeders or businesses is generally caused by bullshit. It's either bullshit that we see online that causes us trouble. It might be husbandry issues or people posting silly crap on the internet that comes back to bite us on the bum. Or worse than that, it's bullshit that gets to become so big and so problematic that it turns into legislation. And when it turns into legislation, or when it turns into a legislative proposal, this is when USARK spring into action. They're essentially a firefighting unit. There's a lot more to what they do, of course, but essentially they're a firefighting unit. Legislative proposals happen. Phil puts his pants on the outside, puts a cape on, flies to the rescue, and they do a really, really good job of solving those legislative issues with evidence and research and common sense. Yeah. Even though the budget that USARK work with is far, far smaller than those budgets that our opponents work with. Our opponents have budgets in multiple millions of dollars, and USARK's budget is far, far smaller than that. But because Phil and his team do such a good job and they work with evidence and facts and common sense, they're usually pretty good at kind of solving, at destroying the bullshit and destroying the legislative issues. So that's what they do. But as a communications guy, as a media guy, I was looking at what was causing all of these problems. I was looking at the problems and seeing all of the bullshit that we see online from animal rights campaigners, and how that turns into generating and changing public opinion. And I thought we could do something about that. And I remember back to when we launched Responsible Reptile Keeping, I was flicking through my phone and getting really angry at all the bullshit I saw from animal rights campaigners. And I was saying, we should do something. Somebody should do something. Somebody should make a website, write an article, make a film or whatever. And my wife sat me down and she said, Tony, you've been saying about doing something for a very long time. So now it's time to either do something or shut the hell up. Mm-hmm. And she didn't actually use that word, but you get what I'm trying to say. Mm-hmm. So we decided that if we produced a media organization that put out the truth and challenged the misinformation and the bullshit being generated by our opponents, then maybe we could kill that bullshit before it turned into a problem. The best time to kill a monster is while it's small. The best time to solve a problem is while it's a small problem. So if we're able to kind of negate that bullshit and be an antidote to that bullshit before it turned into a legislative emergency, then Phil Goss wouldn't have, and USARC wouldn't have so much work to do. And to be honest, Phil Goss shouldn't be having conversations with politicians about whether 75% of pet reptiles die in the first year, or whether your ball python is going to eat you, or whether all of your captive bred leopard geckos have been stolen from the wild. That's stupid bullshit that we shouldn't be having those conversations about anymore. Phil's got more important things to talk about than that kind of bullshit. So if we can take that bullshit off the table before it reaches legislative emergencies, then we've got to be doing a good job. The animal rights campaigners have spent the last 15 years generating bullshit and changing public opinion online. And where have we all been? Well, we've been over here enjoying working with our animals. And Phil's been over here solving legislative emergencies. So we looked at it and thought that if we could solve the bullshit and challenge these misinformation and bias and lies that are generated online, then maybe we could stop some of the bullshit taking root and becoming a bigger problem. That's responsible reptile keeping.
Has there been more? Have people been asking you to become USARC, UK ARC?
No. So
they've been thinking, like, misunderstanding what you are locally.
No, I mean, in the UK, we have Reptile, the Reptile and Exotic Pet Trade Association, and we sit on the board there, and we help out there. In Europe, almost every country has a USARC style organization, even if that organization is multi-taxer and isn't just reptile. Almost every country has a USARC style lobbying information organization that looks after pet keepers. And some of them, like we have in the UK, Reptile, looks specifically after reptiles, amphibians, and other exotic pets. But no, we kind of work peripherally with those organizations. We provide them with information, media. We also talk to them about the issues that they're facing currently. And if we have the capacity and we have the funding, we generate information and content to help their campaigning or their profile. Very much like what we're doing in the UK at the moment with the Scottish Don't Pet Me Positively campaign. That turned into a bit of an emergency. Reptile were doing their thing on the legislative front and the lobbying front, and we're running alongside them, working on the media and the messaging and setting the record straight. So we do get involved with lobbying, but really in a supportive role alongside the lobbying and politically active organizations. We focus largely on the media messaging, PR side of things. Think of us as the media department for the worldwide reptile community. That's essentially what we are.
All right, very good. Well, do you want to talk about the Scottish? Wait, first, what is a whitelist or positive list?
Right. So we can start by calling them whitelists because that's the easiest way to explain them, and that's what they're usually known by in the USA. They're also called positive lists. They're also called approved lists, and they're also in Scotland at the moment called a permitted list. But let's call it a whitelist. And a whitelist is the opposite of a blacklist. So we all know what a blacklist is. A blacklist is a list of things that are not allowed. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So a whitelist is a list of things that are allowed. And if you apply that to pet keeping, what you have is a list of animals, a list of species that you're allowed to keep. Anything that doesn't appear on that list is automatically banned. And guess what? All of the whitelists are very, very short. There's whitelists in place in certain parts of the world, and they're all very, very short. So you might be allowed a leopard gecko, but if a fat-tailed gecko isn't on the list, then you're not allowed to keep it. Why? Mm-hmm. Well, therein lies the basis of our conversation for the next few minutes.
Yeah, the other thing that's always got me with them is like, I mean, there's many, but one of them is like, how do they acknowledge taxonomic changes? Like if they had formerly whitelisted something that was then split into 3 full species, are those all sort of magically added? Or
yes,
are 2 of the non-nominate not added? And, no. And who decides that? And when do they decide that?
So in legal circles, taxonomic name changes usually run with legislation. So, for example, in Norway, Phelsuma madagascarensis are on the positive list, but mm-hmm. nobody keeps Phelsuma madagascarensis. They keep Phelsuma grandis. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but they know it's the same thing.
So they just like wink at each other. They don't like change the list.
No, they don't change the list. That takes parliamentary time. In the UK, in Europe, Californian king snakes, in fact, no, sorry, all Lampropeltis getula mm-hmm. king snakes are banned across the whole of Europe. Now, Lampropeltis getula has recently undergone a lot of taxonomic changes, but if it was Lampropeltis getula back in, I think it was 2021 when it was put on the list, whatever it's called today, they just assume it to be the same animal. Yeah.
Doesn't that seem to be like its own sort of enforcement issue where someone could sue?
Well, enforcement is a joke anyway.
Yeah? All right, well, let's talk about that. How do you enforce a whitelist?
Well, it's sold to governments as being easier because instead of having to learn all of the animals that are allowed, you only have to learn a dozen, or in Norway, they've got a list of 19 species that are allowed. So surely that's easier. Mm-hmm. But no, then they've got to still recognize anything that's not on the list. So would you be able to tell the difference as an enforcement officer between a green tree python and an emerald tree boa? No, you wouldn't. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So if one of them's on the list and the other one isn't, which one have you got? You don't know. You either have to learn or recruit that expertise. They're, that's one of the issues with enforcement. And a whitelist certainly doesn't make things any easier. In fact, we would argue that it makes things more difficult because the odds on them being able to identify all of the species that are not allowed is very difficult.
Mm-hmm. Right. So it's the reason why they really do it is because they're just trying to incrementally reduce the amount of keeping of anything.
Absolutely. Right? And that is the absolute golden point of our argument. So the reasons that they propose a positive list is to act as a panacea for all of the problems that reptile keeping incurs. And these problems exist. Yeah. So let's look at the problems. They come in 5 different flavors. The first one is welfare. They say that all of our animals are badly kept. They don't live. They shouldn't be kept in captivity. They can't be kept in captivity, and they suffer terribly. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how many of your mollycoddled, babysat ball pythons are having an awful time. Yeah. And they, one of the things that came out a few years ago that was actually the subject of our first video is that apparently, according to them, 75% of pet reptiles die in the first year. Yeah.
Where did they get that from? Did you ever figure that out?
Yeah, I did. It was a guy called Clifford Warwick. It was published in The Biologist, and it was generated by bullshit research. And what he did was he counted all of the animals that come into the UK.
Mm-hmm.
What he didn't do was count the ones that flew straight out again on another flight, because the UK Heathrow is a hub. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he counted all these many numbers of animals that were coming into the UK. Then he looked at the animals that were alive and well in the UK, and he used some research by the Pet Food Manufacturers Association. Now, what the Pet Food Manufacturers Association do is they call up lots of households every year and they say, hello, do you keep hamsters? Do you keep rabbits? Do you keep cats, dogs, guinea pigs, budgies, reptiles, amphibians, whatever?
Mm-hmm.
And if you answer yes, they assume that you keep 1.6 of those animals. So that works quite well for dogs or cats, because if you've got a dog or a cat, you've probably only got one.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have got two, and very few people have more. So 1.6 is about right.
Mm.
But when it comes to reptiles, how many have you got? 1.6?
Quite a few more than that.
So, we know the research doesn't pan out. We know their methodology doesn't pan out for reptiles and amphibians. And even the Pet Food Manufacturers Association, I think they're called Pet Food UK now, acknowledge that it doesn't really work for reptiles and amphibians and fish and other things. But there is
also,
another...
like, if it's a phone survey, there's an age bias to who answers their phone.
A little bit, yeah. But it's
I don't answer my phone ever.
It adds a little bit of kind of scope to the research that other organisations like ourselves do, because who answers our surveys? Reptile keepers, yeah. Whereas this gives us a more broad demographic view. So on that note, the Federation of British Herpetologists did a survey. Looked at reptile keepers, kind of did something with the statistics. The guy who runs it is a statistician, by the way. And he did something with the statistics from the broad Pet Food Manufacturers Association. And they came up with a very different number of reptile keepers in the UK, which was reptiles kept in the UK. 8.8 million reptiles kept in the UK. But Clifford Warwick knows this. But he didn't want to use those figures because that's a big number. He wanted to use the lower Pet Food Manufacturers Association figure. So he had all of these animals coming in, didn't count the ones going out, all of these low number of animals alive and well. So what happened to all the others? Oh, they must be dead. 75% of them die in the first year. We've even got, so we know that research is bullshit. We've even got better research from two different organizations that did their own independent research, and they came up with a different figure. The first one said it was, I think it was 3.2 or 3.4% die in the first year, which instinctively we know is probably more accurate. Yeah. And the other organization, which was the Durrell Institute, Gerald Durrell's institute, came up with a different figure, 3.8% die in the first year. So these two organizations with different methodologies came up with a figure that's more or less the same, less than 4%. So even though we instinctively know 75% dying in the first year is bullshit, even though we know by looking at their research that it is bullshit, even though we've got better research that gives you more believable figures, that 75% statistic still does its rounds on social media, still does the rounds on mainstream media, and I've been in a couple of meetings in the European Parliament where that figure was raised there as well. So even though it's bullshit, it still pollutes people's minds, and especially those who don't know much about reptiles. Oh my God, we've got to do something.
Well, were the other two figures published in a peer-reviewed paper?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they just don't get picked up by news stories because it's not a good news story, is it? Oh, not many reptiles die. What, 75% die? Yes, we'll publish that.
That's correct.
So
if it bleeds, it leads.
It's bullshit. All of our problems stem from bullshit. So there's 5 things I mentioned that positive lists say that they're going to fix. The first one is welfare, and we've talked about how much bullshit that is. Yes, welfare issues do occur, but not really to the level that our opponents say, and certainly not to the level that necessitates a widespread ban. The second way that they attack us is by saying that all of our animals are stolen from the wild, which hasn't been true since the 1960s.
Right. We're pretty good at breeding everything. Yeah. Now, I mean, not everything, but a lot of things we're pretty good at it.
And even the wild caught stuff that does come in, quite often somebody will spend, some nerdy, passionate guy or girl will spend a lot of time learning how to breed those. And then once captive bred ones are available, they don't want the wild ones anymore.
Right. I don't want to pull worms out of my tree monitor ever.
Yeah. So actually bringing wild caught ones in small numbers, giving them to enthusiasts is the best way to protect wild populations, because as soon as captive bred ones are available, and it's the best way to prevent illegal trade as well, because if captive bred ones are available, nobody wants those scabby, wormy, illegal, delicate, wild caught ones. Everybody wants captive bred ones. So bring them in and breed them.
Right. So it is. I don't know. It's even for like CITES 1 stuff. Like I understand why, but then I'm like, but if it was legal here, no one would be putting it in their pants to bring it here anyway to sell it for a premium, because it'd probably be like $10 because a lot of these snakes and lizards want to breed, and they're like would be good pets. You know, Fiji iguanas, you don't need to smuggle them.
Exactly. So in Europe at the moment, there are 2 work streams being generated by the EU Commission. Yeah. One of them is about positive lists, which we'll speak about later, but the other one is about illegal wildlife trade. So we were part of the consultation with the EU government about how to stop illegal wildlife trade. And I said, we could stop 99% of illegal wildlife trade within 3 years. And they said, how? And I said, well, every species that's out there, even the most endangered, could probably withstand a very small harvest of wild individuals brought into, human care and given to somebody who is passionate enough and knowledgeable enough to know how to breed them. They would buy a license to breed them. Some of that license money could go back to the country of origin and be put into conservation efforts. Yeah. And within 2 or 3 years, it's most likely that those animals will then be bred, and captive bred ones would be available. And like we said, when captive bred ones are available, nobody wants a wild caught one. There you go. We solved your illegal wildlife trade problem. What's next? Yeah.
Right. Especially on the keeping side, like the consumption side, like, I don't know, like elephant ivory or rhino horns, like they want like the wild ones specifically. But when you want a pet, you want one to keep for a long time or to breed it yourself or whatever. So you want the healthiest one. Most people would prefer captive bred, whatever. Right. It's crazy.
If I want a wild Caledonian gecko to add to my blood stock or to breed a new nerdy species, then maybe I should be allowed to have one because we have the expertise. Right. But if we're talking about pet stores and stuff like that, nobody running a pet store wants to sell, delicate, rare animals. Nobody wants illegal animals for their, the illegal wildlife trade in Europe and America hardly exists. It does exist, but hardly. So that's 2 of the 5 points that they use to justify a positive list. The fact that we're stealing them all from the wild when we're not. The other one is that our animals are going to escape and become invasive. Like, I don't know where you live. I can see snow in the background on your yeah.
I live in Oklahoma. I just wish there was more snow, maybe.
Okay. Well, I can tell you now that in the UK, it's far too cold for many things to become invasive. Even our Trichemis turtles can't breed, or at least can't breed both species. We think we found hatchling babies. We can't be sure that they weren't released as babies, but they might have been hatchlings, but they will only be of one sex. And our opponents say, but what about global warming? If it warms up and we can hatch the other sex, then we've got a problem with turtles. To which my response is, if our planet and if our country warms up to the point where we can breed both sexes of turtles, we've got much bigger problems than turtles.
I know. You got AMOC collapse right after that, so you'll all be dead anyway.
Turtles are the least of our trouble at that point. So,
sorry, that was too far.
Not at all. Sorry. Not at all. But there you go. So the idea that reptiles of all different, I mean, birds and mammals, we can have a different conversation, but certainly reptiles in most areas. Florida is different. The Mediterranean is different. But in most places where invasive species are touted as a big problem. So the Californian king snake is invasive in Gran Canaria. Yeah, it's a little group of islands just off the coast of Africa, and it's closer to Africa than it is to Europe. Even though it's part of Spain, even though it's part of political Europe, it's actually closer to geographical Africa. So the likelihood that a Californian king snake is going to become invasive in Britain, Germany, Poland, is absolutely ridiculous. But it's banned across the whole of Europe nonetheless. And just
does the EU do that because they just have to all agree to the same rule every time? They can't be like selective a little bit?
Yeah, that's right. Okay. It's very difficult to pick a species to remove it from the list. My understanding is crude, but my understanding is that you have to adopt the whole list of proposals rather than say, oh, well, we like this one, but we don't like that one. It's difficult to get a species removed from the list if another country has proposed it. Interestingly, just a slight aside, I spend a lot of time in Gran Canaria. The population, there's two populations of callies in Gran Canaria. The one in the north is the normal brown and beige coloured one. The population in the south is the albinos, the pink and yellow ones.
They're doing okay in the wild.
Yeah, I mean, albinos, it's crazy. But anyway, that's Africa. That's somewhere else. So what have we got? We've got welfare. Yes, there's a problem, but it's not as much as they say. Stolen from the wild happens occasionally, but not really in any great numbers. Then we've got invasive species, which we know we have to be careful about, but it's not really a big issue. I mean, if we're talking about invasive species, we ought to be talking about cats. We ought to be talking about shipping of different products across the world. We ought to be talking about big ships filling up their ballast hold with water and then spilling it out in another sea halfway across the world. Those are big problems. The pet trade really isn't much of a problem. Yeah. So
and if it is a problem, it should be like handled within that state or municipality for whatever reason, like whatever way they feel is good for them. You know what I mean? Like Florida can deal with Florida.
Yeah, and we can make sensible, environmentally species-specific solutions to problems. Blanket banning everything just causes bigger problems, which we'll talk about. So the fourth reason they want a positive list is because your ball pythons are going to kill all your children. Human safety.
Sure are. I'm kidding.
So around about 70 to 80% of all of the reptiles kept by people are in 7 species.
What are those 7?
I was going to ask you if you can name them as a test.
Bearded dragon.
Bearded dragon. Let's stick
some
with
kind of turtle, probably red-eared slider.
No, let's stick with lizards for now. Bearded dragon.
Okay, lizards.
3 lizards.
Bearded dragon, leopard gecko, crested gecko.
You got it. 3 snakes.
Ball python, corn snake.
Yeah. And this other one is just new to the list. It's got really popular recently.
Is it a snake?
Yeah, hognose.
Well, I mean, you have some
hognose.
Massive production in the EU, so
yeah.
Do you think it's the most commonly kept? There?
Yes, the hognose, it's the 3rd most commonly kept animal. In fact, I was speaking to a guy on a podcast in America recently. I can't remember his name. He's a big podcaster and he's a big hognose breeder.
Junior?
Can you remember?
Who? Junior?
I can't remember.
James G. Hognose?
Can't remember. But anyway, he reckons the hognose are actually the most commonly kept reptile species in the world, more than ball python. And the reason for that is because in China, they can't have ball pythons because they're CITES. So everybody in China keeps hognose. Yeah. And the number of people keeping hognose in China by far outweighs the number of people keeping anything else in the world because there's just so many of them. So hognose. And the last one is the last one on the list is a bit of a trick question. It's Mediterranean tortoises like horsefields and hermans. So there's your 7. Which one of those is going to eat your children?
The hognose.
Yeah,
none of them. You think I saw? Wait, I got to go back. The hognose. I don't think they're the most common in the world. Just like prevalence in social media, maybe in China. I don't know. I'm not on Chinese social media. I'm not on.
This is it. We don't know the numbers of Chinese keepers, but this guy and also one of my friends, a guy called Francis Coscari, he's got a Chinese wife. He spends a lot of time over there, and he said, "Oh no, hognose are massive. We just don't know how massive." Over here, we've got statistics. We recently ran the biggest reptile survey in the world. We've got the biggest data set of reptile keepers. We know what they keep, who's keeping them, how old they are, what sex they are, what they keep them in, where they got them from. Are they wild caught or captive bred? Do they breed them? How old are they? You know, all of these questions we've got the answer to now. So we've got the data, and ball pythons are by far the most prolific pet reptile in Europe and America. Mm-hmm. We don't have data from China, so I can't comment, but I think it's pretty true. Apparently 75% of people who keep reptiles have a ball python. So if you're keeping something else, you've probably got a ball python as well.
I don't know. I don't know what's true or not, but I was told from like pet store sales, like from wholesalers, that they think the number sold per store is like biased towards turtles. And those people do not self-report, don't even self-identify as a reptile keeper. They just happen to have two aquatic turtles, because they just got them 10 years ago, and they're still here. And their name's Charlie and Bo. And so like those people are like more common than even like snake keepers, breeders, hognose people, because they just are so casually integrated into the hobby, they don't even know they're part of it. And it tends to be turtles because they live a long time.
And that could be very true, because there's certain sectors of reptile keepers that we don't have significant access to. Mm-hmm. And I would say that the kind of PetSmart, Petco, just got a leopard gecko in their back bedroom, never listen to our podcast, never go on social media, never go to the society meetings, aren't well invested in, you know, the culture, probably didn't answer our survey. Yeah.
Right. Those people, there's millions of them.
Yeah.
I think. And I don't know what they have, but apparently they have a lot of turtles and bearded dragons and stuff that's like mom approved, grandma approved. Exactly. Come into the house. So it tends not to be a snake. So when I talk to like pet store people, they're like, we think it's like 8-1 non-snake pets to snake pets.
Wow. That could be true, you know.
Okay. I mean, I like snakes, me personally, but I can definitely see a bias in like customers at a show where they're like, anything but a snake.
Yeah.
Like mom or whatever.
Absolutely. I mean, we've only got the data that we've got to work with, but certainly even if we just didn't have the data and I asked you, how likely are you to be harmed by your pet reptile compared with a dog or a cat or a horse? Yeah.
Yeah.
You're far less likely to be harmed by your pet reptile than you are by any one of those. And again, we've got data from the UK that tells us that reptiles are the second safest pet you can keep in terms of how many people go to accident and emergency rooms.
What's the first? Fish?
The safest is fish. Yeah. Do you know what? You're the first person to get that straight off.
Listen, I have a master's degree.
You must. So the most dangerous animal you can keep, and
it's going to be equids, cows,
but that's an industry thing. You probably work with cows if you're getting injured by cows. In terms of pet companion animals, horses are the worst. It doesn't matter how they get you; they're going to get you back.
Yeah, you know how many concussions I've had from horses?
You know,
like okay, I'm right this close to permanent brain damage from horses.
Yeah. You know, horses are the most. If it bites you, kicks you, headbutts you, throws you off, you know, you're probably going to end up pretty hurt.
And that's a fun hobby for kids, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
It's deadly.
But don't let them have a ball python. That will kill them.
Right. You know? Anything as most like non-venomous snake could do, way better than the horse damage you can incur. You know,
even dogs and cats. And a lady in the UK recently died of a hamster bite that went.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Was it infected with like a strain of bacteria that was particularly?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So there's 4 things that they attack us for. And the 5th one is what we've just been talking about, zoonoses. It's diseases that can be transferred from animals to humans. And of course, salmonella keeps on coming up. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You're more likely to catch salmonella from your broccoli or, you know, lettuce. I got some stats out of Canada recently, and the number of people who caught salmonella from, I think it was broccoli, was enormous. And then the number of people who caught it from their reptiles is tiny. And then, forgive me for saying so, have you ever caught salmonella from your reptiles?
Mm-mm.
Okay, I'll talk then. I do apologize to anybody in the audience who's upset by this, but if you catch salmonella from your reptile, you're either very, very unlucky or very, very stupid.
Right. You need to wash your hands.
Oh my God. We did
and don't lick your
Yeah.
reptile.
We did a video recently. We did some filming at a Herp Society show, and we said, "Have you ever caught salmonella from your reptiles?" And everybody was like, "No, no, I caught it from food, but never caught it from my reptiles." And this little 11-year-old kid called Angus said, "No, of course I haven't. You just wash your hands. I'm 11, and even I know that." You know, it's
do they ever sequence the ones they suspect are from reptiles to confirm it actually was from reptiles,
yeah,
or do they just artificially blame the reptiles because they were in the house?
No,
I know they
sometimes
can, but how often do they actually report it and sequence the DNA to make sure it was reptile strain?
do. I think. Who's the big American government organization over there? The CD.
CDC.
No, there's a big American government organization that looks after health and disease, and
CDC, Center for Disease Control.
Yeah, so they've looked at it and they can identify specific reptile salmonella, and sometimes you have some outbreaks and they do some they do some publicity about it. But really, in the grand scheme of things, when we compare it to the amount of people who catch it from chicken or from other things, it's a tiny problem, and again, doesn't warrant a ban. So there we go. We have the 5 things that kind of generate a furore of campaigning that cause governments to want to look for a solution. It comes back to the bullshit again. It's sensationalized, exaggerated, lied about, misinformed, create a furore that legislators feel they then have to act upon. And it's all bullshit. So if we can solve the bullshit before it becomes a problem, that can generally, short circuit a positive list campaign, and that's what we're trying to do in Spain. But those are the 5 things that generally generate a campaign, and a positive list is sold as a panacea for all of those problems. Just get a positive list. Let's make a bet with you now. Do you think the positive lists that we have in place in Europe have solved those problems?
No.
Do you think that they've been made worse?
Probably, especially if the ones that's the most important to me is like if it makes the whole hobby go underground, all of them go way worse. Like animal welfare is definitely worse if you can't take it to a vet. You can't report disease if it happens or whatever because you're scared.
I can't come to you for advice,
right,
on how to keep it. Illegal trade just goes through the roof. The whole welfare thing is positive lists are an absolute disaster for welfare. So there you go. It's sold as a panacea for all of those problems when in fact it exacerbates those problems, most usually. Also curtails science, because all of the advancements we've had in small species welfare and husbandry and breeding, and that goes for reptiles and amphibians, where do you think it comes from? Does it come from zoos? Does it come from researchers? Does it come from scientists? No, it doesn't. It comes from private keepers. And even the advancements that happen through zoos and researchers, guess where those guys started? They started as passionate private keepers. So without private keeping, you're curtailing science, you're curtailing welfare, you're cutting off the very enthusiastic keepers that you need if you want to generate good welfare. So positive lists are a disaster for welfare. They're a disaster for science and advancement and pioneering. They're a disaster for illegal trade. They're a disaster for conservation, because if you're not getting passionate people going into conservation jobs, and then illegal trade from other countries becomes far more likely because people still want to keep these animals. In the Netherlands, where they had a reptile keeping ban from 1977 to 2017, you just weren't allowed to keep reptiles and amphibians in Norway.
Is that where the Russian? Norway, not the Netherlands.
Scandinavia,
Okay.
So the government survey estimated that there were at least 110,000 animals being kept in Norway during the ban. All of the pet shops had all of the equipment and thermostats and live food for you to buy, So it didn't stop people keeping. It just meant that I couldn't ask you for advice. It just meant that I couldn't go to the vet. It just meant that, my scorned ex-girlfriend or neighbor would grass me up to the authorities, and then they would seize my bearded dragon or my leopard gecko, offer it to all the zoos who didn't want it because it's just a bearded dragon or a leopard gecko. So guess what happened to those animals instead?
They just get euthanized.
They get euthanized. So well done, welfare. Well done.
We did it.
Yeah.
We saved Norway.
And this is the problem. The animal rights campaigners don't really care about welfare or conservation or husbandry advancements. They just want to stop us keeping. They use these principles and these philosophies as a platform to get what they want, which is to stop us keeping by any means necessary.
Has any current whitelist that was active or has become active in the last, couple of years been rolled back, like the ball python ban in...
No, that's still there. Spain, yeah, that's still there. And in Spain, they're also looking to generate a positive list of reptiles as we speak.
Like on top of the blacklist ban of ball pythons.
Yeah,
ball pythons are definitely deadly.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in Valencia, you were supposed to register your ball python if you had one. Guess how many people in Valencia, Spain, registered their ball python?
2. I'm going to guess 2.
I'm going to say 7.
Okay. So there's a couple brown nosers every time.
I think there might be a few more ball pythons in Valencia. Talking about getting it rolled back, yes, in Belgium recently, the positive list in Belgium was rolled back. They considered it to be an unfair restriction on people's human rights and especially on their business rights to enable them to do business across the European Union, because if you're part of the European Union, you're supposed to be able to sell to all other countries in the European Union without barriers. But of course, a positive list in Belgium really affected that for the Belgians. But it's not the only way that positive lists are a problem. Positive lists fall at every hurdle that you examine them under. It just so happened that the Belgians use the kind of human rights, business rights as their major cause for attack. In the Netherlands, they've got a positive list of mammals. You're allowed to keep 30 mammals, and that's it.
30 total mammals?
Yeah. Okay. It's been, and all the farm mammals are in that list. Yeah.
Sorry.
It's been overturned and reinstated a few times and brought back a few times. And it's currently in its last phase of political debate. That finished a few weeks ago, and we'll know sort of in the next few days whether or not the positive list is being maintained or whether or not it's being shot down. And we expect that to be a major kind of announcement. Let me hit you with some more positive lists. Saskatchewan in Canada has one. Do you think it's working?
Is that the one that bans live rodents? And you have to have frozen thawed rodents driven across the province line.
I didn't know about that one. That's a new one to me.
Like everything has to get frozen thawed just there, but there's no like carve out for health. But
Yeah. It's not working, of course. You just drive across the border and buy and keep what you like. Israel has one. I was speaking to an Israeli guy at a pet conference a couple of years ago. He's like, yeah, we've got one, but nobody cares. Nobody knows how to identify anything. We do what we like.
Yeah, we have a person in the chat.
Cool.
It's annoying.
Yeah, it is annoying.
So, do they pick something random, or do they pick it based on prevalence of keeping before the whitelist happens, or just their feelings?
Very good question. So let's make a whitelist. Let's say that you can only keep popular pet species: bearded dragons, leopard geckos, corn snakes, ball pythons. Guess which species have the worst welfare issues? Guess which species have the worst issues?
Probably
the popular pet species that are kept by beginners. Do you think that the expensive, unusual, rare species that are kept by nerdy enthusiasts, they enjoy the best welfare? So why would you allow the species that are, suffering the most problems and disallow the ones that have the best welfare? It just doesn't make sense. I'm not saying that you should ban bearded dragons and leopard geckos. Of course you shouldn't. We should educate people. But certainly if we're looking for species, the science and the justification for compiling a positive list, there's no science in it. In the Netherlands, the reason their positive list got kicked into court again was because at first they banned rabbits, which of course rabbits have probably the worst welfare of any pet taxa. Yeah, if we were to measure it. But they knew that in the Netherlands, if you banned rabbits, the whole world would be in uproar. So they put rabbits very quietly back onto the positive list and allowed them, which basically killed the scientific justification for positive lists. They said, oh, we're science-led, we're evidence-based, but we're going to allow rabbits even though they're, suffering the worst welfare. So there's no scientific criteria you can use to create a justifiable positive list. It's just a means to curtail keeping. So, yeah, Israel has one. Norway has a list of 19 species you can keep. Once they got rid of their total ban in 2017, they looked to produce a positive list, and they produced a positive list with advice from enthusiasts and keepers. So the enthusiasts and keepers are like, well, I keep this unusual species. Can we put that on the list, please? So they've got some really crazy species on. I mean, Amazon tree boas are allowed in Norway.
Okay, but not Kenyan sambos. Let me just guess.
No.
Okay.
No.
All right.
And some weird turtle that I can't even remember right now. But there's no science behind it. And every positive list in every country is different, the justification. And on top of that, it took them 20 years to generate the reams and reams and reams of paperwork for each species to justify it. Ecologically, economically, human health, welfare, reams and reams of paper for each species. So adding a species is an absolute nightmare. It just doesn't happen. So thousands and thousands of suitable pets are just banned across Norway. If you can keep a leopard gecko, why can't you keep a fat-tailed gecko?
Right.
Why? Because he's not on the list. That's why. That's the only reason.
Right. A lot of these animals they're not the same, but like once you learn the skill set to care for one, a lot of the skills apply in the husbandry style, or you get a similar kind of cage can be constructed for the next one because they're not particularly complicated once you get the formula down.
Exactly. With a little education. The interesting thing for me about positive list bans is that there's no justification for it. Let's look at all of the reasons they've given us for positive list bans. Yeah. Objectively speaking, reptiles make the best pet for anybody. Okay. Now, you might subjectively prefer a cat or a dog or an ostrich or whatever it is that blows your skirt up. But objectively speaking, reptiles are the best. They're more or less the safest pet you can keep apart from fish. They're less likely to give you a zoonosis than an animal that's closer to us, taxonomically.
That's where it's like disease doubling down on, because we're mammals and they're reptiles, they're ectothermic. Very few diseases pass easily from them to us because of our body temperature operation. So we could get tuberculosis from a cow, rabies from a dog, but it's really hard for whatever is in them to jump to us because we're so hot. The viruses don't like it. We're no good.
Exactly that.
Right.
So that's another good reason. You can't really be allergic to them. They don't make a lot of noise when you go to work in the day. Yeah. They're probably not going to foul your flat and you'll lose your landlord deposit. Yeah. They don't even care when you go to work. They're not going to miss you or pine for you.
Right. That's the part that I think is very more critical than I think people think. Like the emotional damage of having a dog locked in a crate for 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
Is like an ethical dilemma that does not apply at all to a reptile. They're like, I'm having fun. I'm on a leaf. Bye. See you later. Don't talk to me.
They're not going to eat all your local wildlife. Yeah. Right. Like your cat will. They're not going to bite the postman.
Right.
Yeah. So however you measure the effectiveness or suitability of a pet, reptiles score highly. And even if we're talking about how cuddly and kissy and affectionate an animal is, okay, so they're not affectionate like a dog or a cat, but a lot of people are very affectionate with their pet and receive some kind of interaction from their pet. The idea that I've got this tree monitor that will actively leave its enclosure, come to me and rest upon me and have the trust in me to have that relationship with the tree monitor, it hits me somewhere deep in my soul. And it's a kind of affection that, everybody who's interested in wildlife just yearns for that kind of trust and relationship with an animal. Because it's a pet, we can make that happen. So yes, reptiles are affectionate. We do have relationships with them, and we also have research from a lady called Celia Haddon that says that reptile keepers love and value their pets just as much as cats and dog people do. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we know darn well that there are plenty of people out there who, without their reptiles, would be in a lot of emotional and mental health troubles indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I will not listen to anybody who tells me that I cannot have a relationship with my reptile animals. I think it's bullshit. So
right, it's a little weird to be like, the reason why, I don't know, to like make that be someone's criteria upon you is that because they whatever, like the animal's brain does not respond the same way a dog's does. That's justification. I mean, like, cars don't respond at all. People love cars, yeah. And they buy lots of cars. So like, that's doesn't matter. That it's just how the person perceives their hobby, yeah. Their activity, their little friend, whatever.
I would also push a little bit further on that. So everybody who's listening to this podcast now, write down this name. The guy's name is Wayne Broomhall. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he's got a handful of pets. He's got soft-shell turtles. I think he's got Hydrosaurus weberi, the southern lizards. He's got a load of, I think it's calotes or cascade lizards. He's got a load of animals that simply do not traditionally act in a way that we would consider affectionate or even safe. How many soft-shell turtles have do you want to handle before getting bitten? He's got a soft-shell turtle called Barry who leaves his enclosure, comes and crawls on him while he's watching TV and sleeps with him. Yeah. And there is no question that this guy has built a relationship with his animals that is mutual. Go and watch him. It will blow your mind how his animals just come over and gravitate to him and want to be with him and compete for his attention. It's almost magical to watch. Yeah. Go and find Wayne Broomhall. You will be blown away with the relationship he has with his animals.
Last name Brumho.
Broom as in broom, hall as in big room.
Haul. Oh, Hall. Hall. Okay. Yeah. All right. There was a request for spelling.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy.
So there you go. What else have we got? We've got a positive list in Slovenia. We've got positive lists being talked about in the EU at the moment. We've been part of that consultation across Europe. It's crazy, the arguments that are happening in those circles. But the most pressing and timely one that we should speak about is the positive list being proposed in Scotland, which we've been very active with. As we've been speaking on this podcast, we've just launched our documentary about the Don't Pet Me campaign in Scotland that is talking about instilling a positive list there because of all the issues that we've been speaking about. But worse than that, in the research that they've used to justify a positive list, they're alongside the conversations about poor welfare, etc. They're saying that most reptile keepers are neurodivergent and of low socioeconomic status, and somehow implying that those traits are reasons why people might treat their animals badly or shouldn't be allowed to keep reptiles, which I find absolutely disgusting.
Yeah. Link to that documentary is in the description of this video right here. Or you can, and also the link to Responsible Reptile Keeping's YouTube channel is also in the description. So if you want to check it out. Yeah, I don't know. It's almost like saying like people, like those people do that weird activity, have lizards. It's very like othering that is so strange. I can't even.
It has no place in political campaigning. There is no correlation between neurodivergence or socioeconomic status. In fact, we've got research that shows that the socioeconomic status of reptile keepers follows a very traditional bell curve. Yeah. You've got people at this end and you've got people at that end. And neurodivergent people are usually the ones that are hyper-focused, very passionate, very kind of, what am I looking for? Organized. Yeah. And these are skills that help with, reptile keeping and animal care. we were blown away when we saw that. And the worrying part about it is that the Scottish SPCA, the Scottish Society for the Protection Against Cruelty to Animals, have traditionally been very supportive of responsible pet keeping. We've had a very good relationship with them. We've discussed many policies and legislations with them, and they have until this point been very pragmatic and evidence-based. And now they've gone out on a limb and gone, oh yeah, positive lists, they're a great idea. And we've teamed up with these two extreme animal rights campaigning groups to push for positive lists in Scotland. They can't justify it. We've asked them.
This is a spicy question. Do you think there was money involved?
I wouldn't like to say, but I do know
donation-y type of thing.
I do know that the SSPCA are in deep trouble financially at the moment. I couldn't say. I wouldn't like to.
Yeah, don't. But I know.
Yeah, you're in Scotland. Sorry, you're in America. You can say what you like. Then.
Yeah, I know. I am free to libel anybody I want.
Yep. But I don't know. But certainly, it's been a very great surprise for them to team up with the animal rights campaigning groups that they have, and we've offered to consult with them and explain to them the problems, and they haven't taken us up on that. So we've produced this documentary to highlight the absolute farce and horror of their positioning, and we hope that they will adjust their position. Let's say we've offered them a way out, and they're still at liberty to take that way out. And we're hopeful.
Response, like if you want to summarize it from the documentary.
Well, their response. So we gave them 19 different reasons why positive lists are a very, very bad idea. And if they want to reconcile their position on positive lists, they would have to give us an answer to these 19 questions that are so damning. The fact that they ruin welfare and cause illegal wildlife trade, all these. And they just came back to us and said, oh, the only reason we like positive lists is because we're in favor of improving welfare, and we think that they're a regulatory tool that's flexible and justified and scientific, which clearly they're not. We don't consider it to be a blanket ban, which clearly it is. And besides, it's not up to us, it's up to the Scottish government, which it is. But with pressure from the largest animal charity in Scotland, you can see why the government might start looking at this, when really anybody with half a brain and common sense would know that it's a very bad idea. But sadly, common sense appears to be reclassified as a superpower nowadays, especially in government discussions.
Do you think people just don't get it, really? Whether, like, because you can go on like a morph market or something and see 30 species of micro geckos available. Do they just not get that really, if someone's an enthusiast, you can't even keep track of the number of species you could maybe keep that are this big, that aren't a problem, and put it in a little cage? Like, they don't even know that that's a possibility, that you could have that many micro geckos. Like, is that the problem, or are they just being obnoxious?
I really think that legislators have no idea of the scope and size of reptile keepers and amphibian keepers and exotic pet keepers. They have no idea. And that's something we're trying to press home, which is why we did the Worldwide Reptile Super Survey recently. We have better data to work with now, and that data will kind of compound and grow over the years that we do it. So that's one of the things that we're doing. And I'm pretty sure that we can explain to legislators that as soon as they start messing with pet keepers, they're going to have a big problem on their hands. Yeah? We know what pet keepers do when they're faced with really, unsuitable legislation that takes their animals away from them. So that's something that we're trying to instill in governments that we speak to. But yeah, there's so much misinformation, and the public opinion and the narrative that's out there isn't realistic. And this is why these issues grow into legislative emergencies. For 15 years, our opponents have been feeding people bullshit about what we do. And we've just been over here working on our animals, minding our own business. And now we've turned around and there's a big problem. So what responsible reptile keeping is trying to do is fix that narrative, take control of the narrative with data and evidence. Now, we're not apologists for the shitty parts of reptile keeping. We know they exist. Yeah, we've already made videos. Maybe don't feed your reptiles so much that they become obese. Yeah, maybe don't do that. Obesity is the biggest health problem with reptiles today, by the way. And we have data of that. We've made videos. Maybe don't release your animals into the wild. Please don't do silly stuff like that.
Don't do that. Right.
We've made videos that are maybe don't kiss your reptile after it's been sliding through its own crap and catch salmonella. Yeah, maybe don't do that. So we are addressing with education and information the issues that need fixing. These issues aren't widespread enough to justify a ban, but we still want to fix them. And this is, I'd just like to say one more thing about this. In all of the discussions we've had with government, the animal rights campaigners are pegged as conservationists and welfare-focused organisations, whereas we're framed as either businesses with business interests only, or as active abusers, yeah, or as active abusers. And we know in the vast majority of cases, not every case, but in the vast majority of cases, we know more about and care more about welfare and conservation and husbandry than anybody else. One of the big campaigners in Europe is called Eurogroup for Animals, and they did a presentation recently talking about a problem that justifies a positive list, because these snakes, the world's largest snake is in trade, and the world's largest snake is a Burmese python, apparently. Hold on. But worse than that, the photograph that they'd got on the slide was a ball python.
Awesome.
So why are these people who know absolutely nothing about reptile keeping advising governments about how to keep animals and what the law should
It's
be?
because they just don't want anyone to keep any animal, so they will do anything they can to peel off the weak links. I think there's an insane pipeline from reptile keeper kid to conservationist that people do not acknowledge. Exactly. That's why I did my master's degree in herpetology. It wasn't because I just was born from the womb or from Zeus's brow, and I woke up one day and I was like, I'm a herpetologist. No, it's because I had a snake when I was 12 or something. Exactly that.
And that's an important point to make. The people who really, really know about reptiles and what laws should look like and what, good legislation, good effective legislation looks like, that's us. Speak to us about it. It's only the fact that we've been so maligned and misrepresented over the last 15 years that we've somehow been framed as the bad guys. And I'm not down with that. Bad guys occur, bad actors do happen. But as we've seen, the trade and the hobby do a pretty good job of, ousting those people and, not always brilliantly, but we can do a better job of it. I am very, very proud of the reptile trade and the reptile hobby, the benefits that we have generated, the pioneering that we've done, the knowledge that we've done, our place on the sliding scale of welfare is good. Overall, on the whole, reptile keeping and the reptile trade are a net force for good, and I'm proud to represent.
And it's been getting better. Like, it's materially better now than 10 years ago, than 20 years ago, than 30 years ago. More information, more like normal people, not just cool rock star dudes with ponytails. Just people are just like, I like this snake. And then they like more snakes, and then they like a lizard, and then they like lizards outside. And everybody's just much better and more educated every year. So I think the arc of history is good.
Exactly. So I started working as a professional in the reptile trade at the age of 15, 40 years ago, right? And I was working at Europe's largest reptile house. We had thousands and thousands of animals there at any one time, and hundreds of species and all the real top-notch stuff. So we attracted keepers and enthusiasts from all over the world. The people I was hanging around with were the best of the best, right? But even the best of the best. Looking back at how we kept our animals back in the day, it was nowhere near as good as the average pet keeper today. We hardly knew about UV light, let alone Ferguson zones. We were using blooming sunbed lamps, for UV. We knew nothing about Ferguson zones. We knew hardly anything about nutrition. It was a breakthrough when somebody explained to me the relationship between calcium and phosphorus for herbivorous lizards. We knew nothing about substrates and impaction. We knew nothing about infrared light, and these were the best of the best. Reptile keeping has come on so much in the last sort of 30, 20, 10 years that we should be applauded. And the reason it's come on so much is because every time somebody's attacked us over something, we've gone, oh, right, okay, let's fix that. Let's learn about that. And that's how all the innovations and the products and, the businesses that supply our products have been the pioneers. So my question to you is, if we've progressed so much over the last 15, 20 years, why are we having more trouble today than ever before with legislation? And the answer to that is the internet. The internet,
more visible.
The internet is where people go for their news, where they do their research, where they join little tribes, where they build opinions and ideologies. The internet is where everybody goes. And what's been happening on the internet for the last 15, 20 years? Our opponents have been saying what they like about us, and it's all gone unchallenged. So that's why we're having more trouble today than ever before, because they own the Overton window, the public opinion. They've polluted everybody with bullshit about what we do. And what responsible reptile keeping are trying to do is fix those problems, correct those mistakes, challenge the misinformation, so that if somebody sees bullshit online, we've probably got a video about it, and they go, no, that's bullshit. Here's some facts for you. And that closes down the discussion. We've had phone calls from journalists who said, hey, I was going to write an article about this 75% of reptiles dying in the first year, but then I saw your video. Can we talk to you as well about that? So now we're part of the communication. We're part of the the discussion.
Thank you. How about that?
Thank you personally, Tony.
Well, I ought to turn my laptop around so that my wife's in shot as well, because she says I can't. But while I do all the talking and reptile stuff, she's the lady who keeps the wheels on. She's the lady, if you get in touch with us, you'll speak to Vicky. She does all of the membership, all of the social media, all the graphic design, all of the accounting, all of the stuff that really keeps responsible reptile keeping's wheels on. So that's worth knowing.
Thank you, Vicky. Everybody say thank you in chat.
Who's waving?
All right, where can people find you, and are you going to be anywhere anytime soon that maybe people can meet you if you want to say your sort of schedule a little bit?
So they can find us everywhere online. Just type in responsible reptile keeping. You'll find us on YouTube, TikTok, WhatsApp, Facebook. Apparently not WhatsApp. On Facebook, on Instagram, on Substack, on everywhere, and of course on our website. Thank you, Vicky. Says
Emma
Murphy. So you can find us everywhere there. If you want to meet us in person, we'll almost definitely be at the Tinley show in the autumn. Or late summer, autumn, in Chicago, is it?
Basically.
We'll almost definitely be there. We've also, as of last night, been invited to go to the Taurus Reptile Expo in Calgary, Canada. So we'll be there. And there's certainly a few other places we'll be at. We just started last year to go to reptile expos and meetings, and we found it very, very useful. People are very interested in what we do when we get to speak to them. So come and meet us there. Please go and look at our videos online. So before I go, we should talk about what your guys can do to help us with our mission. There are a handful of things. So firstly, it is go to our website, look at the businesses and the organizations that support us financially, because we can't do what we do without funding, of course. Look at the organizations and companies that support us and do business with those organizations, and email them to say thank you for supporting us. Because these organizations are busy doing their job, running their businesses. They don't get time to look at everything that we do. But these are the organizations and businesses that understand the mission. So we'd like you to do business with them. We would like you to get in touch with them and tell them how thankful we are for their support. So that's the first thing. The second thing is probably more important, and probably the most important, and this is to share the crap out of everything that we produce. Our job is to disseminate information. It's to give information and education as broadly as possible. And even if only your Auntie Betty looks at your social media page, it's your Auntie Betty's mind that we need to change. We're an echo chamber here. We already know most of this stuff that we're talking about. Yeah. Yes. It's the people who are not invested in reptiles that need to hear it, so share it. And this is another thing that convinces our supporters to continue supporting us. If they see our content all over the internet, they know that we're doing a good job. So please share, like, and comment, and all of the rest of that usual crap that every Instagram person tells you that they need. It's absolutely true. Please just subscribe. Please just share our stuff. It's important. It makes the algorithm love us. It gets the message out there, and your Auntie Betty will understand it better than she did previously. So that's the second thing. The third thing you can do is we are a membership organization, and monthly membership with responsible reptile keeping starts at as little as a cup of Starbucks. Yeah. So, and this is important. The more followers we have, it generates an amount of funding for us, of course, but more importantly, it gives us a bigger voice when we speak to governments. But most importantly, we can't be everywhere on the internet. I can't be searching the internet looking for bullshit to fix, but our supporters can. They're everywhere on the internet. So when you see bullshit on the internet, you can post our resources and links. We have videos, podcasts, interviews, government briefing documents. We have documentary films like the one we've just made. All of these are resources that you can share to help close down the bullshit before it turns into a problem that US ARC have to deal with. So share the shit out of our stuff, become a member, share our stuff as widely as you can, and we'll have a bigger voice.
Yeah, I did see you did translations of some of the videos into different languages.
Oh God, that's been massive.
Yeah, so that's pretty good, because like that's part of the problem. Like when I was trying to look up the Korea thing, I was like, oh my God, I don't speak Korean, I can't read Korean. It was a crisis. But you do have multiple channels now in multiple different languages.
13 different languages. We've obviously used AI to translate it, which was a bit weird because my wife did one of our voiceovers on the videos, and what our AI package does is it takes my wife's voice and then translates it into German or Spanish or Chinese. So it's really weird listening to my wife speak Chinese and German and all those other languages. But you just mentioned the Korean positive list, which we came on with the direct reason of talking about, and we haven't. But the Korea's just implemented a positive list. It is, let me hit you with it. When I say just, I mean this week, you're allowed to keep 9 mammals, 17 bird species, 655 different species of reptile, but that doesn't include any pythons. So all of the ball pythons, the children's pythons, no boas, so no rosy boas, no sand boas, no Sanzinian, no dumrills, no monitor lizards, so no Aki monitors. 655 species of reptile, 207 species of amphibian, and fishes appear to be unregulated.
Well, what I was talking to you earlier about is I think there's another list. That's why I was like digging.
Yeah.
Like the other list has other things on it. I don't know what's on it, but I'm assuming it's all the CITES 2 stuff, all the boas, pythons, and monitors. Yeah. And they may be legal, but they're a different category. So I kept going. I don't know. I need a Korean person ASAP to confirm or deny, because I don't see like the Koreans like not selling ball pythons right this second. They didn't stop.
That's definitely what happens every time a positive list is imposed.
They just keep doing it.
Just go underground. Keepers just go underground.
Yeah, and so I was like, I think I just have a feeling there's another list, or maybe I'm wrong. But like they kept being like, you need a permit. Like the one they found in Gangnam Station, they're like, this needs a permit, and I'm like, but that was after the list was passed.
There is a guy on our in the comments on our Facebook post about that positive list who is Korean who talks about it. So maybe I'll get in touch with him and find
right.
out
Just double, because I think so. Like if you have a frog that's not on there, for example, even if it is on there, the regulatory burden. I was listening to them talk about like the reporting burden for frog spawn, because you have to report every single instance born and died. So like you have a 300 or 1,000 baby spawn of toads or something. They're like, I have to euthanize them because I can't even report
fill out the paperwork
successfully all of these frogs, or get rid of them or not have them anymore. And then if it wasn't on the whitelist, it was grandfathered in, but you couldn't breed them or sell them anymore, like anything else. So that's, I don't know. It just seems really complicated, and I would love a Korean to.
And this is the problem with all positive lists and legislation that's been developed by people who have absolutely no idea about reptiles or trade or anything like that. It comes out, and then we say, we told you not to do that. We told you why you shouldn't do that, and you did it anyway, and here are the problems. But at that point, they're like, well, we don't care. There's the rules. It's for you to deal with. They don't seem to account for the fact that the rules are unnecessary, unenforceable, and therefore compliance will be near zero. And that's what we found with almost every positive list that's been in existence.
Right.
It's,
and Korea is like a double whammy, because it's a positive list and requiring full documentation of everything on the positive list. So it's like, it's not just it's good to go, it's also good to go, plus you have to fully document it like it's an endangered species, and it needs full accounting. So it's a little frog or something.
So what does that do? Let's add layers and layers and layers of regulation and paperwork and bureaucracy to reptile keeping. What does that do in practical terms? What it does is it discourages people. Mm-hmm. It's an extra administrative burden, and quite often people go, oh, well, forget that then. I'll go and have a hamster, or I'll go and learn stamp collecting, or do something different with my life. Mm-hmm. And it's that kind of bureaucracy is prohibition by the back door. And I could understand if there was a significant enough issue that needed emergency measures to deal with it, but there simply isn't. Yes, welfare issues occur, and we can fix those with education better than we can fix it with a ban, because we know a ban will cause more problems. But our opponents aren't actually interested in welfare. I think it's Petter who say better dead than bred. Yeah. And then when we're discussing problems with CITES, they say we would rather the animals were endangered in the wild than kept in captivity. So I think it's Born Free that are campaigning against axolotls being kept. Well, if axolotls weren't kept in people's homes, they wouldn't exist. They're almost extinct in the wild. So thank goodness people are keeping axolotls. Crested geckos, without captive keeping of crested geckos, we might still think they're extinct.
Right.
It's they were extinct until 1992, I think it was, when they were brought into captivity for people to breed. I could rant on about this for a very long time, but you can see why we need practical, enforceable legislation. Legislation isn't the problem. We have legislation in every country I know of that addresses welfare, that addresses invasive species, that addresses conservation, that addresses human health issues. We have legislation to deal with all those things. The problem is A, enforcement of that legislation, which is very lax, and B, education to stop people doing crazy stuff in the first place. Adding an extra layer of legislation in the form of a positive list doesn't make those things more illegal, doesn't make people less likely to do it. In fact, it makes people more likely to do it. The people who ignore the legislation already aren't going to change suddenly because, a positive list. Yeah,
it is a weird sort of double jeopardy. They're like, it's illegal to abuse animals, right? But then they're like, but also
don't abuse the animals.
Also do all these other things that aren't abusing animals. But like the first rule, don't abuse animals, still applies. So that one would have been sufficient.
It's death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
And that's what we're worried about. Anyway, I think I did some small rants there, and I could continue ranting all evening.
Got to pop off. We should get some hot reptile people of all genders to make reptile keeping hot. You're right. I was thinking a well-placed cute pet placement with a couple of key influencers would do wonders. They don't even have to keep it. Just be like, hey, Taylor Swift, hold this leopard gecko for a little bit.
Who was the lady at the Grammys recently? Who was the lady at the Grammys recently who said that her husband wasn't there because they were off acquiring?
Oh yeah, I remember that. That they were in a New Jersey reptile show getting a bearded dragon. That's good. That's good marketing. I love that for us. Honestly.
Well, here's some good news for us to finish on. I've talked to you all about the woe and grief and problems that we have, but here's some good news. Public opinion is changing. Public opinion is changing quickly, and I'll give you just one example. Over here in the UK, sometime in the summer last year, some fool was photographed taking their Burmese python to the local park to have a swim in the pond while the guy was wearing a pair of Speedos. Yeah. Okay. And someone took a photograph. Now, please, everyone, don't do that. That's stupid.
Right.
Yeah? But what was encouraging was the comments, whereas 5 or 10 years ago, it would have been awful, that thing should be in the wild, it's going to eat your children, and all those other things we normally hear. Last year, what we had in the comments was like, it's just a guy with his Burmese python. Leave him alone. He's not hurting anybody. They're really friendly. Leave him alone. Sure, nothing to see here. And it was a real shift in the public's perception. And this was in like a tabloid magazine website. So it wasn't a reptile place. It was It was in mainstream news. So public opinion is changing.
Yeah, I think more and more people have met somebody that's just like a family or whatever that has a bearded dragon. It's like not even that weird anymore. You're like, oh, okay, whatever. So that's good. That's what I'm saying. And also the composition of shows, like the kind of people who are there, it's like a lot of families and they're selling toys. And if you want a pet, you can have one, but it's not a big deal. That I think is good too. Like shows don't need to be like mass market meat factories. It should be more about the education and like liking animals in general. And that's been happening in the States a lot. So
let me give you my hot take on why that happened.
Economy's not that good either. Also,
I'll give you my hot take on why reptiles have become more mainstream over the last sort of 15 years or so. And it's all the fault of women.
Gosh, right? You got to put them back in the kitchen.
No. Hear me out. So,
kidding.
30 years ago, we did not see women at reptile shows. We did not see women at Herpetological Society meetings. We did not see many women at all. Yeah. But that changed about, I think it was 15 or 20 years ago, when these beautiful glass enclosures were built and reptile keepers started making enclosures that looked beautiful. Instead of having a wooden box with newspaper on the floor and a water bowl in the spare bedroom, what we had were these beautiful enclosures that were allowed into the living room. And when they arrived in the living room, many women started to take an interest in these beautiful enclosures. And women in reptile keeping absolutely shot up. In fact, our survey said that 51% of reptile keepers who answered our survey were women. Now, this might be because women are more likely to fill in a survey, which I think is true, but certainly there are vastly more women in the trade and the hobby than ever before. And generally speaking, broad brushstroke, I know this isn't a complete statement, but women are generally more nurturing and caring and have friendly pets rather than men who are interested in temperatures and substrates and products. And so that's why herpetology, mainstream adoption and welfare have shot up in the last 15 years. Thank you, the women in our hobby.
Yeah, so it's like the aesthetic one, but also like the rise of gentle, good pets as a thing instead of a big berm, a venomoid, converted, poorly, whatever, cobra. Like and I know people are like, well, that's not good, but like it's very tractable to many families to their first experience be a bearded dragon or a leopard gecko or a baby ball python or whatever.
It's not just heavily tattooed bikers anymore.
Yeah.
It's a family mainstream hobby. And this is, it's been a wonderful thing to happen in reptile keeping.
Yeah. Women.
Women,
For
we
us,
love them.
we're so awesome.
Done such great work.
I kind of follow both sides, which is funny because I'm like, but I think women can do that too. Like, I don't know, everybody can do that. You can be
Of course, there's
deeply
spectrums.
aesthetic, be deeply pet, but you can
Yeah.
also want to breed for color or whatever dumb thing you want to do.
There are bell
That's not-
curves.
Right.
There are bell curves.
But I do think it is much more approachable of a hobby now. And most
It
people
is.
know someone who's had a pet reptile or amphibian at this point in the US anyway.
Exactly.
Even if they've never had it, they know someone who had it. So it's all good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The
All right,
tide is turning in our favor. That's
Mhm.
that's the take home from this.
All right, we did it. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me again. I'll see you again in a couple of years, I would
Yeah,
hope.
maybe I'll see you at Tinley or something one day.
That would be
Tinley's
awesome.
so far. It's like a 14-hour drive or something for me.
Goodness me. It's far for me.
I know. Okay, sorry. Let's say goodbye. Bye, everybody. Thanks
Thank
for
you very much,
coming.
everyone. Great to speak to you.